For those who are now joining us, good evening. We'll be starting up in a minute.
Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing? Welcome to Peace Week. I'm going to wait for Keith to remove. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Peace Week. Welcome to Peace Week. I just want to quickly introduce who we have here today. We have the New York City Mayor, Bill de Blasio. We have the Chief of Patrol, Juanita Holmes. We have Chief Program Officer April Glad at the Pinkerton Foundation. We have activist and actor Michael K. Williams. We have CMS leader Kay Bain. We have principal and educator, the extraordinary Dr. See, you so extraordinary, I can't even say your name, sis. Dr. Nadia Lopez. We have Deputy Inspector Terrell Anderson, the People's Inspector out in Brownsville, and we have Jessica Mofield, head of the Mayor's Office to Prevent Gun Violence, our leader, and Delano Martin, who is a young man who's coming up through this whole program and transforming the world. I think I covered everybody that is a panelist for tonight, and so we welcome y'all. We're gonna start off with the mayor, de Blasio, who's going to tell us how he's going to help change the world in his last 8 months here in New York City, and make sure that he lifts high all of these wonderful programs that are existing, and allow the people to lead as they are in Brownsville.
All right, Erica, thank you. Happy Peace Week, everybody. Erica, thank you so much, truly from my heart, for everything you do for Queens and for the whole city, and to everyone at Life Camp and everyone at all the Cure Violence and Crisis Management System groups that are part of this. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do. Erica just took 4 months off my term. I don't know why she did that, because over 12 months, Erica, including this one, I intend to continue to strongly support the Cure Violence movement and the crisis management system in a number of ways. We'll have more to say on that in the coming weeks, but very deeply moved and impressed by what this movement achieves every single day. And thank you, everyone, especially for what you did for this city and for all communities during COVID to help keep people safe. You played an absolutely pivotal role educating people, getting the masks out there, saving lives. So I really want to thank you for that. Look, I'll be real quick. I'm really happy. This is a good day to be getting together, not just because of the power of Peace Week, but also because of some very important things that are happening in our approach to public safety and to neighborhood policing. I'm really happy to be joined by Chief Juanita Holmes, and I'm so just impressed and struck by her leadership, and obviously what she is doing as Chief of Patrol, changing the police department by her very presence and her leadership. I want to give a special thanks to Inspector Terrell Anderson for what you've done in the 7-3 precinct. I'm a fan of yours. We haven't gotten to spend a lot of time together, but I have been watching closely, and I get lots of reports on the amazing things you are doing. And I was asked the other day whether it was authorized and supported, and I said it's authorized and supported by me. And as mayor of this city, elected by the people, that's what matters. So thank you for what you're doing. Keep doing it. And it's a model, I think, that is going to just deepen as people see the impact. So thank you. And to everyone, look, a special thank you, because when we get a cultural figure of the sheer impact and meaning of Michael K. Williams, who I've been just a tremendous fan of for years and had the honor of working together on a few things, and one of the greatest actors in the greatest series in the history of television. and a man who's done so much for social justice as well. So really honored to be in the same Zoom with you. Bobby, really quick, look, Peace Week says it all. And it's a good day to be getting together because the country's changing. And that was profoundly clear yesterday. It's a good day to be getting together because new leadership it's making its presence felt within the NYPD. It's a good day to be getting together because today we announced the Memorandum of Understanding between the NYPD and the Civilian Complaint Review Board, which now makes solid and strong and clear and public the commitment of the NYPD to follow the decisions that come out of the Civilian Complaint Review Board and the trial process, and to mete out discipline. And we really want, all of us want every officer to never have a reason to need to be disciplined. I just want to hasten to say that. We all appreciate the officers who do things right every day. But those who need discipline, it has to be clear, it has to be swift. And the discipline matrix, if anyone on here has not seen it, please go to nyc.gov/discipline matrix. You're going to see something amazing. It's unprecedented. It will revolutionize police discipline. Never had it before in New York City. People all over the country are calling us today asking how they can do the same thing. It says what the offense is and what the punishment is, period. And the NYPD has agreed formally, legally, to abide by this matrix. So this is a very important day for this city, and a day where a lot of change will be fostered. So everyone, look, I have a lot of confidence what's going to happen in 2021. I have a lot of confidence we're going to turn a lot of corners in 2021 and rebuild with a sense of equity and addressing disparity and unfairness. And we're going to invest in communities, especially those hardest hit by COVID. I'll conclude with a simple point. When I first became mayor, I did not know the cure violence movement and the crisis management system that well. I admired the things I had heard, but I just didn't know it humanly, personally. I got to know so many of the good people on this conference. And I saw your works, and I saw the lives you saved. I saw the risks you took, the way you put yourself in harm's way to save others, the way you were willing to do things to inspire communities by your example and your bravery. And it has worked, and it has worked, and it has worked again. The jury has come back. Cure violence and crisis management system work. And we need to build it further in New York City and all over America. And in my full 12 months, Erica, 12 months, I am going to lean in even harder because you all have proven that you are profoundly part of the solution. And I say thank you and God bless you for that.
The last 4 we was going to be sailing into a new heights. So the 8 is where we're going to do the work.
Okay.
Right, and we hold steadfast to the work. You know, we know that as Bain said to me earlier, that a lot of times the intentions of NYPD is good, but the action is different. And you know, holding them accountable. I hope that this, you know, new process holds them literally accountable, because without accountability, there's no move forward with police and community. And, you know, one of the things that we saw in Brooklyn was that the people picked the inspector. And I think that moving forward with allowing the people, especially in those communities that were mostly impacted by stop and frisk, by allowing the people to pick their inspectors allows the community and police really to work together. And, you know, if Deputy Inspector Anderson could tell us how that process worked, and how it brought success in the pilot in Brownsville, it might be able to shed some new light on things that we can do in the upcoming future. What do you think?
So good evening, everyone. Reintroduce myself, Deputy Inspector Terrell Anderson. I am the commanding officer of the 73rd Precinct. So I have very close ties to Brownsville. I was actually born here and lived in Brownsville up until I was about 9 years old. Then I had the benefit of being second in command here as a captain. And that's where I can say I fell in love with my birthplace all over again. And then I had the honor in June of being assigned as the commanding officer. And, you know, Chief Holmes, once she was appointed the chief of patrol, you know, she set the tone. She put out operation orders. She put out her vision, and that was for us to engage with the community and reimagine policing and embrace, the changes that are coming about that we've been working on. So, just through being in tune with the community and working with, the 5 different crisis management system teams that we have here in Brownsville, I came up with an idea, and that idea, and it came from the community itself. That came from following my chief's orders, that came from, the TA president, Tenant Association president, Lisa Kenner, yelling at me on a Zoom call, asking me, hey, Inspector, what are you going to do about Mother Gaston Boulevard? So Mother Gaston Boulevard between Pickett and Sutter. And, after I got off that call, and I didn't take it, personal that she was yelling at me. I'm the precinct commander. This is a responsibility, that I bear, and I bear with pride. I realized that the conditions that faced us wasn't something that we could arrest our way out of. And, just to paint a picture about those particular 2 blocks, it's a commercial strip. But what you'll see is, gang members hanging out. You may see people who suffer from mental illness. You may see people who, suffer from drug abuse. And I had to really ask myself, and that particular 2 blocks is looked that way. It's had those quality of life conditions since I was a child. But the only thing that's been constant there is the police presence. So I had to ask myself, what could help solve this problem? And after asking myself, I had to ask the community, what do you think would help solve this problem? And the answer was the community itself. Bevo, Brownsville End, Violence Out, Anthony Newell's over there, Vanessa Johnson. I have a great relationship with them. We sat down, we spoke about what are the options that we have, and we realized that there's a lot of community-based organizations that can offer resources. As a police officer, oftentimes we're waiting for bad things to happen, and then we react and we protect the public. The thought process behind this particular pilot was, well, what if we can stop them from happening in the first place? What if we could offer people the resources to stop them from leading to doing anything that would, that would require our attention in the first place? The pilot incorporated 32 different community-based organizations that came out during one of the coldest weeks in this, of the year, during a pandemic. So in NYPD, often when we have major incidents, we call what you call a level 1 mobilization or a level 2 mobilization, and all these resources come. This was a community mobilization. This was community-based organizations that offered different services that came out on behalf of the people. And just the fact that they were willing to collaborate with us, just the fact that, there were so many organizations and people who were willing to come out on behalf of Brownsville, it was a great week. And it was something that, under the direction of Chief Holmes, we're looking to incorporate citywide.
And under the direction of Mayor de Blasio on the other side, in terms of the city organizations and CMS helping us with Jessica and so on and so forth. And I know you have to go to another meeting, but I think that what was done in Brownsville and what we do across the city, as you both eloquently saying, I know Bain is going to raise later, but it works. And so if we can stronger together, really collaborate on a real intentional way to not only hold ourselves accountable, but hold those accountable who are our partners, and really in the next 12 months, do some real drastic, different kind of things. I think that one thing that Trump did show us, right, is that people can do what they want to do. Whether it's, unfortunately, his was under a bad umbrella, but we can take that as we move forward during Peace Week and really transcend new lights on New York City, and turn it over to you in particular, turn it over. You'll still be a a resident of New York, but turning the baton over in a new and dynamic kind of way. And so, you know, as you leave us, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Erica, thank you. I want to say, I mean, I'm not going to quote Donald Trump like you, but but I do think it's a version of leaving it all on the playing field and you know, sprinting all the way to the finish line, but also being willing to do some things. You know, I love that the inspector did was, you know what, Inspector, I was listening very carefully to the way you framed it. I appreciate it that, you know, decades and decades of some of the same exact challenges in Brownsville. And what was the constant? The police being out there in force, but guess what? It didn't change the fundamental reality. And you putting those pieces together and saying, let's do something different. And it obviously had a very striking impact. We got more work to do, but it was, you know, that's thinking outside the box, that's innovating, that's doing something, even if it wasn't acceptable, quote unquote, in the past. Why isn't it acceptable now? And I appreciate you for that spirit. And to Chief Holmes, we've had great conversations about this, and I really appreciate, because I think people can hear from your heart that you understand how much PD has to have a different relationship with communities, but also defer respectfully to community leaders and to cure violence in the crisis management system. In the many cases where that's the best way to get something achieved for everyone. And you are now perfectly positioned to make this example from the 7-3 precinct come to life across the city. And you not only have my blessing, you have my strong encouragement, and you just have to tell me what you need, and I want to help you get it done. Seriously, because I think
Thank you.
This is the
Thank
shape.
you so much.
This is the shape of things to come.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you
everybody.
for
Bye-bye.
take care.
Happy Peace Week.
Happy Peace Week. Michael, as a celebrity, as a resident of Brooklyn, as you know, someone who has used your voice quite often around raising the issues, why do you think it was important for yourself to take a lead role in what took place in Brooklyn and in all of the different struggles that you participate in? And what do you say to other celebrities? You might have your thing on mute, Michael.
There we go. First of all, I want to say thank you for even having me on this panel and to be a part of the narrative to change and to be a part of the solution where we need to be where we need to be in our community. I just want to start off by saying the fact that I'm being asked this question is the problem within itself to me. I'm doing nothing special. It's, you know, if I'm at a point in my life where if I am not bringing my goal back home, my lessons, my accomplishments back home to my community for the next generation, then what am I doing with it? It came to me a few years ago. I had this epiphany. It was actually doing an interview where I realized that everything that we are conditioned to do, everything that we are taught to do, from people that come from communities that look like mine, it is taught with the notion of getting out. You know, get an education so you can get out, get a good job so you can get out, become a famous entertainer or athlete so you can get your mama out. You know, everything's just done with the notion of leaving the very same community that made us who we are. So I asked myself, where the heck am I going? Where am I going? What does that mean? How come once I make a certain tax bracket, I have to take my resources and all of my gold, my lessons, my achievements, my accessibility? Why am I taught to take all of that out of my community? And that really started to play on my heart. And it was right around the same time Dana Rackley and I really started doubling down on the work that she was doing in the community. I started doubling down with her and really taking an interest in what she was doing in the community. And it was one day she was like, yo, Mike, let's go to the 73rd precinct. And I was like, okay. And we went. And two things happened. One is I watched how she walked in so confident and effortless into the precinct. She walked in that precinct like, you know, like she belonged there, like it's part of the community, and she has every right to walk in there and to get to know the officers in there. It wasn't arrogant. It was just she knew her place in the community, and she knew her place in the department as being part of the community. And I froze at the door. Froze. It was like someone put a hex on the door. I felt like I got gripped with fear and panic. Like, what am I doing walking into this precinct? That was profound for me. I had to take a look at that. And then we walked around the community. This was the first day that I met Bivo. And they took me around a tour of Brownsville. And then I got my second epiphany. I was like, you know, holy smoke, I haven't been home in a very long time. That bothered me. You know, there's no secret in my past, in my story that in my past, I struggled with addiction. And so I'm in recovery. And when God blessed me to get a second chance in life, I made a beeline for the arts, and that ate up a lot of my years. And you know, I look back now as a middle-aged man, as a grown man, and I'm like, I haven't really left any breadcrumbs in the community in which I come from. And I'm not even from Brownsville. I'm from Flatbush, from East Flatbush, the Vanderveer. But it was something about just going home to any community, but especially like, you know, even though I'm not from Brownsville, I have fond memories of my mom. You know, she'd make me sit in the car and she would go get her wigs and her fish. You know, like they had live fish markets all up and down. You can buy live fish. And I'm first generation of an immigrant mom. And so, you know, it was just, I remember Brownsville, Pickens Avenue being this vibrant community with a lot of business. And I went there, and I was a little taken back to how barren the community had become, but yet still, I still saw brothers that looked just like me. You know, I know what it is to get dressed up and come in the corner and stand there. And I saw that, and they welcomed me home, and it was just, the feeling was just overwhelming. And, you know, and then I was like, you know, Mike, you know, I'm not saying I want to live in the projects again. However, I am saying that I need to tether myself to my communities. You know, I need to rebuild. My goal is to take away the stigma of that nothing good comes out of the community. You know, I can go on and on about my community, and it's just, but I'm just now remembering what my community did for me, what it meant. And yeah, of course, I saw a lot of misfortune and lack of opportunity. And my goal is to be a part of putting some of that back. But first things first, I needed to get back home and link in with my brothers and sisters. Through the work, I've gotten to meet, again, beautiful brothers and men and women from Bevo, from Life Camp. Deputy Terrell, man, I consider you guys, we are brothers and sisters from the same community. We just have different jobs, but we all have this one agenda, you know, to save our community, to give our kids a platform. And so, you know, the fact that I don't even look at it, you know, what it means. If, you know, it's the answer to the question of what it means to me to come home is life or death. Mine, like my life or death. If my community doesn't make it, if it crumbles, I have nothing to go back to refer to. You know, it is more than just going home to visit the people that I know. It's about bringing my successes, my goals, my lessons, bringing that back to the community in a way that is tangible and can grow. And that's what it means for me to come back to the community.
Straight ahead. We appreciate you, King. We appreciate you, and hopefully your peers follow you. But you know, I'll definitely be alongside of you, working to make sure that that we do that. Get more of your partners come back to the hood. April Glad, as Michael spoke about, and I know you have to go to another event as well, Michael. So we appreciate you participating in today, and more than importantly, participating on the ground in all of our communities to make sure that things are right. You know, we appreciate you, and we hope for your peers follow. Right.
That's it. No doubt.
We just lost a soldier, Dante Barksdale from Baltimore, who was on the front line of the street soldier, street Save Our Streets in Baltimore, that does the work like me and the brother K. Bain here on the thing. He was a general in that work out there, and someone killed him Sunday.
Mhm.
And so, and we know that a lot of us came to know you from your role in The Wire, which was a depiction of his family. And so,
Oh, he
we
was an
salute that
actual
brother.
Barksdale. Okay.
He was
I
an
don't-
actual Barksdale. He was Tater. He was Tater. He was Avon's nephew. And so, we just want to continue.
Shout out to
holding-
Be More. We lift y'all up,
Yeah,
bro. Lift y'all up. I'm just talking about Donnie Andrews today.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. April, as he talked about his role and the role of people in celebrity, philanthropy, foundations have a large footprint on our work. And so how can we public-private partnerships make changes in the city and really do some different things and use philanthropy dollars to reinvest in community and really reinvest in the front line of community? How can those things, and how's it been successful for you in your work?
Thank you, April, Erica. It's really good to be here. My feeling is that there's more money going into criminal justice reform from philanthropy in this moment in time than ever before. Tons and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars from tech philanthropists and others are flooding the field. And I feel like for all the work they're doing, they're missing the boat by not recognizing the transformative liberatory work that's happening on the ground. They call it service, direct service, and they write it off as unimportant to the movement building work that we have to do to make sure everybody in our cities is valued the same way. And so I think there's real work to do to tell philanthropy that this work that's happening on the ground with people who are from the community, listening, supporting, loving, caring for the young people in that community, that's what keeps us safe. At the end of the day, we need to feel it's what love looks like in the justice system, is when we listen to the young people and we engage in them in real, authentic relationships where we model good behavior and we provide opportunities and we work unconventionally to wrap ourselves around them, to listen to what they need, and then to help them figure out how to get it. That is so much more conducive to public safety than so many of the other things we do. And so the work on the ground is so powerful. It's 100% completely effective. We've all seen it. All of us I know on this panel have seen many, many, many actual young human lives transformed by the liberatory work that we're doing. And I think there's a call to philanthropy to recognize this on the ground work as important as the advocacy work that they label and support. So thank you for that great work. I cannot encourage people to support it enough. And it needs to grow and expand.
Right on. So we'll definitely look to partner with you and hold some kind of conversation with all of these philanthropists who are giving away millions of dollars across America, so that maybe they can do something different and talk to the folks here who are doing some great work. Because we have to change, as people around the summer talked about I Can't Breathe, and talked about defund the police, and talked about there has to be something different, and has to co-produce public safety, and we need to see new ways Bain, what is it that you think that we were able to do for all these years in New York City to kind of address some of those salient calls from people around the nation in the real sense of the work of the crisis management system?
First and foremost, thank you, Erica, for including me in tonight's conversation. I want to say greetings, Deputy Inspector Anderson. Captain Jenkins of 114 speaks very highly of you, and I see now why after hearing you speak. Dr. Divine Pryor sends his regards as well. Chief Holmes, pleasure to see you once again. We have crossed paths in positive ways in the past. I'm looking forward to continuing that. Crisis management system, unprecedented success, hands down. Now, it was really easy. I'm a Brooklyn boy. I do a lot of work in Queens. Erica had me out life camps about 2014, learning Southside Jamaica, Queens. I cut my teeth. Then they pushed me out to Queensbridge Houses, the largest housing development in North America, where we implemented some of the best practices that we knew worked before there was this administration, even the Bloomberg administration. We had mentorship. We had people in our community who showed us the importance, as April just said, of listening to community members. So in our people-centered approach, similar to what we just saw, which is not surprising to us, the success that happened in Brownsville. It's amazing. It's a blessing. It's something that all eyes need to pay attention to, but it's what we've come accustomed to whenever we take the time to listen to the people. And you can't be leadership in law enforcement. You cannot be leadership in public safety on any level if you are not assessing the needs of the people. And that's what we've been doing for some time now. So when you talk about the crisis management system of New York City, you're talking about some of the most influential, credible people in the city of New York. And that credibility comes from having a bearing, a standing, an impact on the communities and neighborhoods that we work in. And this system is very organized. It's not as funded to the level that we would like it to be. We don't have all of the resources that we would like to have at this time, but we have been growing it steadily and continually since 2009, 2010. And so with the funding that we received, the data, the evidence is undeniable that we have seen, again, unprecedented results with the work that we do. Really quickly, it's important to note that Black and brown people in our communities, right, have had their imagination, the ability to imagine themselves and to dream. We've had it literally and figuratively beaten out of us. That is the history that many people in these underserved and disinvested communities are experiencing. So what we do in our system, and we do it in a multiplicity of ways. We do it, everyone, Life Camp has a very special and unique approach. Look at Peace Week. Peace Week is something that, in and of itself, what an incredible concept and idea to challenge people with peace. But then you have other organizations that take the same spirit that we're talking about of co-producing public safety, and they embody it differently. But essentially, we're doing about three things. One, we're setting goals with young people. We're teaching them that it's okay to dream and imagine, and then we're putting timelines on those goals and dreams. Secondly, we're investing in social capital and networking. So you will see credible messengers, VIs, outreach workers, et cetera, from various sites crossing over to different geographies to show support. We work well that way. Social capital in our communities. There's so much, as my brother Michael said, that is in our community. There's so much there that we have to harness and use. And the last thing that we do in the crisis management system is we really pay attention to mental health. And you mentioned that as well, Deputy Inspector. You mentioned the fact that there is mental health. There are mental health issues in our community that have been unresolved, that have not been treated. Right now we're in the midst of a vaccination. And the word I hear on the streets is there's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of people in the Black and brown community, when there's something that could save lives that's being released, people are up in odds. There's a lot of back and forth. It's not just an automatic let's go, because the distrust comes from a lack of faith in the system. We've seen the underlying conditions of COVID take 3,000 lives a day at its height, at the highest points. And all of this was preventable, but there's been, again, a perpetual disenfranchisement of people, which has led to my opinion, a logical distrust. So the journey that we have as community leaders, community people, and law enforcement is one of building and establishing a trust. But we first have to acknowledge that that distrust exists. In order to heal, there has to be acknowledgement. And then there's apology. There's public, outspoken words that say, I see the harm, I acknowledge the harm, and I'm ready to move forward. And only when we do those things will this healing justice momentum that we're building find its full consequence and impact.
Straight ahead. Thank you, brother. Which is a good baton pass to Delano, because when we talk about healing, when we talk about being true, a lot of Delano, when we met you, it was a day that 3 of your friends had been killed on the streets. And not when we met you, but when we started to. But also, I know that you are someone who is constantly harassed by the police because of a life that you used to live. And so how do the pain of the loss of your friends, the understanding of where that road leads, and then the confusion of just the anger. I remember one day you called us and you were just so angry about the disrespect that the police were giving you, and you were an employee at that time. But yet, as Bain talked about, you find a way to show up every day and do this work and continue, and it didn't stop you from doing this work. So can you talk about how this work that Bain laid out, that everyone has talked about, has changed your life and has impacted your life? And what do you think is something that can be further instilled to help more young people like you see something different?
Good night, everybody. I'm not really good at pronouncing names, so I'm just gonna send my respects to everybody in the most humblest way. To open up, yeah, you're right. I did lose 3 friends in one day. That kind of woke me up, and the fact that I have a 12-year-old daughter added to it a little bit. When I lost those friends, at the same time, those wasn't the first friends that I've lost due to circumstances of the streets, but losing 3 in one day was kind of like a lot. And, with respect to, the streets and to their families, I don't really want to go into too much details about it, but what made me come to, respect and to love the CMS way of life is the fact that when I was going through my trials and tribulation, I didn't really, respect that mental health played a major factor in things that I was going on, because you could sit there and listen to a lot of advice. You could listen to millions of different views on certain things, but you still have to implicate these things in the way of life, which means you have to get up every day and roll out that bed and tell yourself that things will be okay. You still have to fight the demons and protect yourself. You still have to, do it according to the law. And that's hard. And I felt like life camp showed me the balance, showed me how to be a man in a sense, because credible messengers work here. I work with individuals that got like 200 years in the system. A lot, some people were innocent, some people paid, their debt to society, but they all came out with a different structure. A lot of people, in my generation and under, they don't realize this main concept, which is that we do certain things to go to jail, but the minute that we go to jail and we pick up the phone, the first sentence is when we come home. So it's like we preparing ourselves to do certain things to go to jail. When we go to jail, it's a whole bunch of programs and ways for you to exit out that situation. So the whole cycle is revolving, and I had to really learn and understand that. But life camp, on a mental tip, I was able to, really see that I had issues. I was scarred from the police. I didn't want to have no type of verbal understanding. I felt like I was being attacked everywhere I went. And it's not to shoot at every police or not to disrespect any, everybody. Every police officer is not on that page or that type of timing, but that's what I was going through at that phase of my life. And with respect to the inspector, when he was speaking, basically what he did was he started to listen. And you know, you can't really implicate changes to an extent if you don't really take time to understand what you're trying to change. If you just are told certain things, which is you're 9 times out of 10, you hear the worst of the worst, it's hard for you to want to make it out your element. The inspector, he took the time out to options and see with the people in Brownsville, and that's a hard community. That's really a community. Was able to get some type of
his phone or fix his
to
service.
start going. We felt. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, my connection is bad.
Yeah.
You can hear me better now?
Yeah, your connection. Yes.
Yeah. I'm better now.
We should have tested it.
I'm good. I'm all right. I don't know. You can hear me now?
We gonna work on your connection and we're gonna come back to you. All right. You should get a better employer that offers their life camp. They don't have good Wi-Fi or something. Check and see if they pay their Wi-Fi bill or something. But, and Dr. Lopez, this is like a regular for you. Every day, there's probably young people like Delano. There's situations like everything that we talked about. And so how did you come around to create such a wonderful institution at Mott Hall
Bridges Academy. It's okay, it's a mouthful. Thank you, Erica, for the invitation to speak on this panel, and greetings to everyone, the esteemed guests as well. You know, for me, Brownsville is one of the most resilient places on earth, and I believe that there's the most brilliant children that reside there. But the unfortunate part is that we are literally located in one of the richest cities in the world, yet the most marginalized community in New York City. And when I became a principal, prior to opening up Mott Hall Bridges Academy, it was my responsibility to learn about the community, right? It wasn't about me coming in and saving a community that was already had its own mantra, never ran, never will. They were cool, they were okay, they were going to figure out a way of surviving. But it was my responsibility to say, you know, what was the purpose of me opening up this school, and how can I be a humble servant? So that required me, one, I recognized what my responsibility was, which was to open a school to close a prison. And I was going to do that by any means necessary, but understanding that what was causing the school to prison pipeline? What was at works that wasn't allowing our children to get the resources that they deserve, to be in communities where they feared going to the local hospital? They had no trust in the healthcare field. They had no trust in our law enforcement. And they really had no trust in the school system, but they were forced to come anyway, because if they didn't, ACS would be at their homes. So I had to understand the trauma and the hurt that already existed and say, what do you need? So I'm from Brooklyn, but I'm from Crown Heights, went to school in Fort Greene, and all I knew was that you got to go to the projects, you got to go where the people are at, and you got to start asking those questions, and then be willing to listen to the answers and do something about it. So when I went, whether it was Seflo, Van Dyke, Marcus Garvey houses, wherever, the same question that was being posed to me was like, what are you going to do differently? And so at the onset, I said, I need to start building relationships with the very people that you seem to have fear in, like the places that you don't want to go, because the school is a reflection of the community. We are the hub. Lack of proper education is why we incur all of the healthcare issues, right? So we have the highest risk in every single area, whether it's diabetes, cancer, hypertension, HIV and AIDS, is because of lack of education. In addition to that, we also know that there's mental health issues because of post-traumatic stress disorders, because of a lot of the issues in terms of abandonment. And so what I had to do was develop relationships with Brookdale Hospital And I had to have hard conversations and bring them into the school so they understood, well, what's going on, but also bring parents to the vice president or bring them to the actual president and start talking about, well, we have children who have been diagnosed and they've been categorized as having special needs, but do we understand what the needs really are? And we can't keep giving children medication so that they don't have any ability to understand and articulate themselves, but understand that we need to provide therapeutic measures. So those were some of the things that I had to start with, just building relationships within the community itself, but then developing programs that would allow us to have intentional reasons why we should have conversations. So NYPD was, we were in great conversations in terms of intervention. So when I started as a principal, there was a team that used to come into schools. And that was Detective Allen was part of that team. And so if I had a concern, I could call Allen on the phone, Shafadia, Egbert, whoever. They would come to the school and we would sit down with families. We would do mediations. We would do home health care checks, whatever was needed so that our families, because that's also where the fear stems from. Our families needed to know that we were in partnerships, that they weren't in trouble.
Right.
And if they had concerns, they had a liaison. So we did that. And I want to thank Deputy Inspector Anderson. He actually came to the school. I wasn't there because I was on leave, but you participated in our storyteller day. And that was important, right? Because they need to know that they are people of color who are on the force, and they need to know their stories. And the idea, as Michael had explained, is that we don't want our children to think that they have to leave their community. We want them to be able to invest in their community. So I want them to know and have conversations with someone from NYPD and talk about, what are some of your fears? What are some of your concerns? Why did you choose to be at NYPD when you know what's happening to our community as a whole? And so just understanding that part of it was important, but then also taking them out of the immediacy of Brownsville. I wanted them to compare other places. So we took them to Park Slope, we took them to Prospect Heights, Brooklyn Heights, and have them have conversations about what's the difference between even going to a store. Why is the libraries the way they are? Why are the vendors the way they are? And then talking to elected officials so that they can have a better understanding that our children recognize that where they live is different. And why is that? And who's responsible for that? And so by doing all of that work, we then create advocates. We create individuals who can now articulate and say, we recognize that something is different about where we live. We recognize that we need more. We recognize that through education, we can bring change. We also understand that we are the future. And so what is the responsibility of the adults around us to ensure that we have a safer and more progressive way of living? And so the work of Mount Hope Bridges Academy has always been, we are of the community, we serve the community, but we want to make sure that our children thrive within this community. And it's something that every school should be able to do. And so I want to thank NYPD for all the 10 years, 11 years now, Mount Hope Bridges being there. I can safely say that we've always had a great relationships and they've always been responsive. But to you, Erica Ford, for your work, for always challenging us to make sure that we protect our children. And when we didn't have someone to have our back, you've always been there. And to those who are philanthropists, they have to understand that they have to invest. It's not about supporting just the prison industrial complex, but we got to start with our children, because if we don't, they're going to end up in prison, and we don't want that to happen. We have to start investing in their education and getting the right leaders in our buildings to make sure that they have a better tomorrow.
Right on, right on. And I think it's a lot to do with your leadership as to why the relationships work. Same thing with Bain and myself in this work. It is the leadership that we bring that allows people to relate to us in a different kind of way that they do in other areas of our community where they don't get the same support. And so, for two Black women, Jessica Mofield and Chief Juanita Holmes, who, one from NYPD and one from the Mayor's Office to Prevent Gun Violence, that leads the CMS work. A lot of times, I know for for the CMS workers, sometimes we're looked at as perps. I know I heard Commissioner Shea say the other day that the marchers were Antifida or something like that. Everybody's always something, but how do we take responsibility? How do we work together? How do we co-produce public safety with recognizing the true reality of where we are and the places that we need to go, as everyone has laid out? And what are the steps and things that we can begin to do, or things that need to happen to make sure that we move correctly into a new direction of reimagining, reclaiming, redefining, or whatever, but keeping our children safe, as Dr. Lopez said, and out of the prison system, out of the graveyards. Either one of you could go first, Jessica.
Good evening.
Yes.
Hi, good evening, Erica. Thank you so much for inviting me to this forum, and happy Peace Week to everyone. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, if you don't know, but I'll try and be brief with it.
All you guys got to do is this Macy, is your thing up?
Take Delano out, please, because we hear him.
Okay, all right. So just, I think it's 33 years in July since I started here with PD and Academy, and totally different job from when I started. That's for sure. But one thing I want to say after listening to everyone, right? And you know, I'm born in Brooklyn. I'm born in Best Eye. I lived in Marcy Projects till my parents moved out of there. I was probably 5 years old. They bought a house in St. Albans, where I grew up at, where I met Erica at. But back when, but with that, you know, I basically lived in Brooklyn because my father's mother lived at 784 Quincy in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and my other grandmother was from Flatbush. And basically every weekend and every summer we were there. So I know the community well. I have a lot of family in Brooklyn, really throughout the city. I have people that walk up to me. The other day I did something with Darcel Clark, and a gentleman walked up to me, I think I'm your cousin. So he mentions another cousin. I said, well, if you're his cousin, you're definitely my cousin. But I've met a lot of family that way because I have this huge family. Holmes is a strong name, so, but very big family in the city. But I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Like, I look at all that's being done, right? And, you know, we're talking about reinvention and reimagining. I had the privilege of being a commanding officer of PSA 2, which encompassed Brownsville, Crown Heights, and East New York, all the developments in that particular area. And I worked there for several years. I know Lisa Kenneth very well because I equally have my Lisa Kenneth stories, and I consider her a friend. And she's very demanding, and we worked well together. And I was not surprised when Terrell Anderson called her name about holding him accountable, because that is Lisa's personality. I love every bit of it. But this is probably in 08, 09, even back then. Lisa and I sat down with the police, with the facilitator, speaking about police and community relations. That's a long time ago. And I remember it oh so well. But the concerns that we have now about our communities, right? I remember having those same concerns back then. And my reasoning for staying on patrol means you stay out. You have a precinct like Terrell Anderson, borough like Judith Harrison, where you can be with the people, have an effect on the men and women working for you, and then still have an effect in your community by ensuring that things are done right. And that was my decision in life. I started PSA 2, culminated with the 8-1 precinct, where I was born at. Felt very surreal just being in that precinct that I used to walk past, going to Broadway to get pizza from my grandmother's house on a regular basis. But with that, I realized that a commanding officer has the power to accomplish their mission through the men and women that work for them. It's not easy, it's hard work, it's a lot of conversations, but equally have the support of the community. I've been very fortunate. I never had a community march on me or against my cops. I set tones that I expected to be met. And it's very challenging when you are in law enforcement, especially back then, we're talking probably about 10 years ago, and you want to bring the community and the police together, but with police, you don't want them to feel you're so pro-community that you don't support them, and the community that you're so pro-cops that you don't support them. And that's a uniqueness. And I think I met those challenges because I really cared. But one thing I always often say is where my ignorancy lied. I thought what I was doing in my command was being done citywide, and it just wasn't. I remember people filing complaints that lived in the 7-9 precinct and the 8-1 because they said 7-9 cops were nasty and they didn't like going in that precinct. And when they come here, they're greeted, and then people are taking their complaints and their reports seriously. And with that, I call a commanding officer and give them a piece of my mind about what I thought was going on and the complaints that I'm hearing, only to be met with people still coming to my command filing reports. But one thing I did, and I think I did it right, and the only reason I feel that is because tonight I had a call from Danielle Pemington and Erica and Terrell. You know who she is. She's part of our strategic initiative. Big part of working with Chauncey Parker with reform and reinvention in the police department. But she calls me and she speaks about Aisha in Harlem, that she's coming in with bringing some young people to sit down and have a conversation. And Aisha spoke about she wanted this one captain to come with her, El Tahari. So I remember the name because why? He was my sergeant in the 8-1 precinct. And in the 8-1 precinct, I put him in the capacity of children. That's all he did. I had an entire team that went to group homes, that went to schools. If I had children that were committing robberies, they went and spoke to their parents. And contrary to what anyone wants to think, those children, when they were in the house with their parents and we knocked on the door, welcomed us in. They sat there, they spoke with you. We just spoke with them about how to change their path and things of that nature. But so I found it very interesting that Aisha wanted this captain to come with her because she felt that he really had a great vision about, working with the community and working with young people. So just that in itself told me I did something right back then. But now culminating with this position, probably one of the most challenging naturally and during the most challenging times, but the most rewarding because I think everything I strived for, the promotions, the sleepless nights, the sleeping at work, culminated with this position of being chief of, because now I have an effect over 77 precincts, right? Instead of that one command that I had back then. And like Terrell said, coming in the door, I wanted to push something out to share my vision, and especially about the neighborhood and especially about young people dear to my heart. I grew up in a family of 13. I have 12 brothers and sisters. I'm the oldest girl. I have 6 brothers and 6 sisters. And with that being said, we didn't eat steak every night, right? My lights got turned off and we used candles. And, we went through the motions of a big family back then. And my parents didn't have this elaborate education, but they managed to buy a home in their 20s, very modest home with 13 children, 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, right? But it was home for us. So I often tell that story because sometimes when you're in a position like this, people think, oh, you can't get privileged or you had these opportunities I didn't have. I might have had the one opportunity of taking this exam and really making a career out of it and not just looking at it like a job, but what could I do with this position, as long as I was here? And it was always to help people. And, you speak about apologies, right? Of public apologies. I've done numerous public apologies, probably for things that I really didn't even have any control over. But the mere fact that a person that we were supposed to be serving, protecting and serving, felt the way they did about the police department, I would always just say, I apologize for you feeling that way. And on behalf of the agency, I'm sorry. And I had nothing to do with them feeling that way. But I think it's very important for us to do that. And it's nothing wrong with it. I think sometimes, and being in law enforcement, you look like, oh, I didn't do it. I wasn't part of George Floyd. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. And I think when you come to realize that you know, you can move forward. So I just want to say gun violence, we were met with a different level this past year that we haven't seen in years. You know, we managed to suppress it in many ways, but most of that with the community. When we had impact, that's when we just flooded areas with cops. So wherever we had violence, the only variables taken into consideration was violence and the number of phone calls we were receiving to 911. So that determined how many cops we put in the area to police the area. One thing I can say, they're unlike other police departments, they put their cops in these rich areas, right? And that's all they're concerned with. We put out cops where crime was happening. The only thing is,
I want to interject
yes,
in your presentation
okay.
to as the new, and Jessica coming right to you, but you opened up a door to personal responsibility because you're in charge of 77 precincts now. And so
Absolutely.
as you said, on a low level, you saw that people weren't allowing people to, you know, take complaints and just be in a sense of manners and respect for people in communication. But now, you know, yes, you were not in George Floyd, but New York has its own level. We saw just Monday police, and last week in Queens, there was a cop who put their knee on someone's neck. And so how do you think that you will be able to change the culture of some of those cops who, as we saw at Capitol Hill, some of them just don't care, you know?
Right. Listen, I saw what I saw at Capitol Hill too, and some things were quite surprising to me. So, you know, my thing is, no cop should police speech, right? You police conduct. That's what it is. You police conduct, and even then, there's some discretion, right? You cut kids' breaks, things of that nature. The accountability component here now is things are dealt with swiftly, and not just by me, but with the police commissioner, with the chief of department, they get ahead of it. The minute something's seen on social media, the minute someone's complaining, that information gets pushed out, and depending on the circumstances, it gets dealt with swiftly. I know the officer that you're referring to in Queens. I know that Internal Affairs was handling that particular case. And with the incident that just happened Monday, I think there were like 29 arrests in that particular incident. You know, you have to do things differently. There has to be a different approach. So last night, you know, yesterday was the inauguration. We knew we were going to have some protests, anticipating Trump, you know, over at the Trump Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
This thing was, I called Chief Jeff Madry, and I said to him, listen, you got to take the lead on this. It has to be community affairs. It has to be a soft approach. It can't be where you're out there and now they see this stance that the police are taking, and the minute they feel if we interpret that they're out of line or they're not compliant, cuffs are going to go on. And you know, you're going to see now that that's going to probably be the process. You know, Chief Madry says, me, the lead. I said, yeah, you're the lead. You know, you're gonna lead. And I think moving forward, he will be. And that's probably one of the biggest changes that you're going to see. And he should be. And it should be community affairs. And that's the way you have to approach things. And Erica, you know, when we had our conversation before with Eric and we were speaking about moving differently in the city, big example, my hat off to Inspector Terrell Anderson. He sees things like I saw 10 years ago. And, you know, how do we change it, right? And the one thing I used to tell all the time, you can't arrest everybody.
I want to, just in the sake of time, I'm going to have to move to Jessica, but if we have more time, we definitely will come back to, you know, the partner in that, Jessica. So how do co-produce two strong Black women? How's the other side, Jessica? Y'all got your pearls?
You said I stay with my 9 pearls, but much peace and blessings and love to you all. Very grateful to be here with you all. Very grateful to see some new faces and some familiar faces. I definitely don't want the Apollo Sandman to come and take me off the stage, so I keep it, you know, short and concise. What's been really beautiful about this experience is that, you know, the kind of narratives that people share really highlights the intersectionality of our human experience and how we come together. And I think when we have that understanding, it creates a world of innovation and transformation. And the reason why I say transformation is because I feel like we're beyond reform. It's time to do something new. And I think without that understanding, you know, it creates and makes it difficult for like the recognition of, you know, our equal experiences of humanity, very, very different. And I think, you know, in terms of the leadership, right, I definitely see myself leading from behind because it's about procedural justice. Those are the things that we're talking about. We're talking about transparency. We're talking about fairness. We're talking about basic respect. We're talking about upholding the basic things that we all should have access to. And we know and we have seen constantly over time that those are things that have not happened. So I definitely think that, you know, one, I'm grateful to be among advocates, leaders like yourself, like Kay Bain, like AT, like Aisha, like Reverend Wendy. And when you start giving shout outs, you know, like you said during our pep rally, it's difficult if you don't acknowledge everyone, but everyone that is a part of the network, because, you know, the constant theme that I'm hearing throughout, you know, Dr. Lopez talking about the experiences in schools, Delano talking about his experience of one, recognizing the trauma and hurt of losing his family members, but then also trying to figure out how does that manifest itself into him being a good dad for his daughter, is decolonizing the narratives that we have about ourselves, that we have about our communities, that we have about our capabilities. And I think once you understand that, my job is really to penetrate what that looks like in bureaucracy, because bureaucracy doesn't work for community. So it's about changing not only the way that community interacts with government, but how government treats community. It's about a partnership. You know, even in the language that's used in human service contracts, it was only but a couple of years ago that they changed the language from vendors to providers, understanding that you all are providing an essential service. That not only, you know, supports the basic need for young people to be cared for voices to be heard. For us, those things are normal, those things are regular, but for other people, they are not. So I think it's about caring for our communities in a different way. And I know, again, and I can't say this enough, that a lot of people like to think of this as, you know, non-traditional work, but being family oriented, taking care of people, having kinship are things that we have always done. But when it's done in a way for us to organically thrive, it works. So I think a part of my work, and as the mayor corrected us in the last 12 months of this administration, is making sure that you all have the capital, not only social, but the fiduciary capital, to be able to be active and have equal footing as justice partners, as community partners, as healers as you are, because I think it makes it a lot difficult when you have the task of providing public safety and it's at the feet of 100 people. There's a disparity within that within itself. So understanding that, you know, showing up and holding space for community, showing up and recognizing that we go home to these communities, because I live in the 8-1. I'm like, Brevoort is down the street. I'm in the middle between Brevoort and Kingsborough houses. These are our homes. This is where we live. This is where we thrive. This is where we come from. And that's the reason why our narratives are so rich. It's the reason why we're so dope. And I think that, again, when the infrastructures to support community-led approaches to safety is done with intentionality of support, when it's done when a lens of growth, when it's done where you have the ability to be able as a grassroots organization to diversify your portfolio so you are not reliant upon government and bureaucratic structures to be better partners, then that's when we can really see folks thrive. And I'm really excited about the space we're in because it's just the beginning. So I definitely recognize and understand who I'm accountable for and who I'm accountable to. And it's our communities, it's where we live, it's where we rest our head, and it's also you all. So I think the energy and vibe has always been to support the leadership in community, because there should not be an office to prevent gun violence. It should be community centered and focused. So it's my hope that I'll work myself out of a job to be able to do that.
I'm definitely down with working myself out of a job. I'm definitely down with that. And moving to Hawaii or something and just,
Take me with you, girl.
but we have come to 8:15, and so we have to have a part 2. And so I'm going to ask all of you here and the mayor's office who is still here that we need to have a part 2 because each conversation led to another conversation, and we definitely want to continue this conversation, and we want the people to be involved in the conversation. But we said that we would end at 8:15, and I gotta go celebrate my girls, Salt and Pepper, and their biopic coming out. And so I have to do another panel. But what I do want to say is that we came here during Peace Week because we have to take personal responsibility to make peace a lifestyle. And you know, we just launched this campaign with Bandier, and the slogan is "No peace, no power." Because when we know peace, you know, when we know that our people can have a piece of peace, when we know that our children can go home safe, when we know that we don't have to worry about going outside or driving our car and being faced with racism and discrimination and abuse in our communities, then we know our personal power to transform our lives. We know our personal power to transform our community. We know our personal power to make a difference. And so, you know, along with Bain and A.T. Mitchell and Ife and all of the other brothers and sisters in the crisis management system, we are here to work alongside city government because we know city government is not going anywhere. But we will not stand for continual disrespect. We will not stand for our people being maligned in the street. We know that we've reached a fork in the road where something has to be different. And so as we sit here with a lot of Black women, as we have a Black woman vice president, that we hope that as our energies lead into this universe, that we can truly give birth as we normally give birth to something different for our children. And so I thank you all for joining us tonight. I hope that you commit to a part 2. We will get back to everybody immediately for a part 2. I hope everybody signed up. We thank everyone for tuning in, and have a happy Peace Week. Take the Peace Week pledge, go to Peace Week NYC, join the family, join our move to make peace a lifestyle here in New York City. Thank you all for your wonderful work, and let's keep supporting each other. All right? Peace.
Peace.
Everybody. Peace, King.
Salute.
And I see your gray hairs,
Peace.
K-Bang.
Yeah, they crazy.